Brighter Light, Darker Shadow by Backing into Infinity. Read by Oak Shadow 5. This will be Chapter 4 and 5. So let's start with Chapter 4, which is entitled A New Friend. Summary. The boys meet their new classmates, and some fascinating impressions are made. Izuku opens the door to Class 1A before class starts. Not quite as early as Kachan would have liked, but still rather ahead of schedule. Kachan follows him in and sits down on his desk, putting his feet up for comfort. They chat idly for a few minutes as Izuku fidgets in his desk before people start to filter in.
"Excuse me,"
a blue-haired boy exclaims, chopping his arm mechanically.
"Please remove your feet from the desk. You are disrespecting this great establishment and our upperclassmen who once used these desks."
Izuku stands up and wanders away as Kachan does his impression of the noise a hurricane of nukes would make and approaches the other student who had arrived early and was sitting quietly at a desk. "Hi," Izuku exclaims. "I'm Midoriya Izuku. What's your name?"
"Shoto Todoroki."
The bichromatic boy replies flatly, barely acknowledging the loud grenade buzzing around his desk. "Hi, Todoroki," Izuku says, refusing to be deterred. "I didn't see you at the exam. Are you a recommendation student? Do you want to be friends?"
"I am not here to make friends,"
Todoroki says, staring ahead and resolutely not engaging.
"My father recommended me, and I will do my duty and become the #1 hero."
"Oh, you're fucked," chuckles Bakugo from the other side of the room as the blue-haired boy indignantly squawks behind him. "The nerd won't let you hear the end of that now." "Kachan," complains Izuku. "I'm not that bad. I'm going to be his friend, but I'll be peaceful this time." Todoroki looked vaguely bemused at the exchange, turning his attention back to his desk as the classroom door swings open again, a sizable chunk of the class filtering in now that the bell was approaching. "It's you from the exam!" Two voices ring out in distinctly different tones. The purple-haired boy, wandering over to Kachan's desk with a friendly wave, is far more interesting to Izuku than the bubbly brunette staring at him in abject terror as she sways and nearly passes out, so he bounces across the classroom again and crowds around Kachan's desk. "So you passed, huh, extra?" Kachan grunted. "Good. That's a fucking broken quirk you have."
"Thanks,"
Shinzo says.
"I appreciate the sentiment and the help, even if you're an unmitigated ass."
"Ha! The fact that you call me eyebags?"
I'll call you whatever I want, Dinah Slide."
"Kachan!" Izuku interrupts the posturing by gleefully gesturing in all directions. "You made a friend? I'm so proud of you. You've grown so much." Kachan growls and turns his head up, refusing to acknowledge what Izuku sees as the obvious truth. Meanwhile, the purple-haired boy has mimicked the action in an equally grumpy manner. "Ibex isn't my friend. Hey!" The pair grumbles, turning to glare at each other and then the obnoxious Lord Brunette, who has begun a celebratory dance beside the desk.
"If you are just here to dance, then you can get out now. Take your seats."
A yellow caterpillar rises from the doorway and chases the last few students in as everyone scrambles for the seats.
It took you 12 seconds to get organized. Time is valuable. Wasting it is illogical. Here at UA, you will be rigorously trained to become heroes. The teachers are given complete freedom to teach how they want, and I demand logic from each of my students. Which includes not muttering while I intimidate you. Do you have something to say, Midoriya?
"You Eraserhead!" Izuku says excitedly, turning forwards from where he had been mumbling in Kachan's direction, where Shinzo nodded along. "You're my inspiration!"
Hopefully, I inspire you to pay attention in class then. Put these gym clothes on. We are having a quirk apprehension test in the front field instead of going to the illogically wasteful orientation ceremony. The scruffy hero tosses a pile of labeled gym uniforms onto his desk and walks out of the classroom. "If you aren't at the PE grounds in 10 minutes, you're all expelled." Shota watched his students pensively as he ran through his routine speech about the quirk apprehension test and the school's system failures. Predictably, the bubbly pink student made the yearly comment about fun, and it took a brief moment of pleasure in viciously shutting it down. As the students began to run through their activities, Shota weighed each of them carefully. This year, each student seemed to be promising, although Todoroki was clearly lazy, and he had some concerns about how aggressive Bakugo was. However, the recordings of the entrance exam showed that Bakugo could be cooperative, and even now, as he watched, the boy was socializing well, if not peacefully, with Shinzo and Midoriya. Maybe he wouldn't need to expel anyone after all. "Alright, the last test is long distance running. Line up and off you go. You'll be scored on how far you can go before collapsing.
Shota barks out, feeling a little vindictive and willing to make this test a little harder since no one had shown cracks yet. Time to see if they could handle despair and total extortion, or if they would give up prematurely.
Go as far as you can. Show me your determination to be a hero. This is your last chance to prove yourself.
2 hours later, and Shota was still watching time count onto the clock, each second coming off what he thought would be some 3 hours for an afternoon nap. Almost every student was collapsed around the track, aside from Momo, who had clearly made a bike and could pace herself better, and the 2 emergent problem children, Bakugo and Midoriya. Those 2 were clearly far past their limits, dragging themselves step by step as they threw taunts at each other and staggered around the track, refusing to give up. Shota groaned internally. Problem children with too much determination were never a good thing. He called a halt to the test, watching the boys collapse gratefully as he started to tally the scores, marking the final 3 runners down for infinity to be nice for once.
Alright, congratulations to Ryozu for coming in first. Hagakure, you came last.
Shota trailed off ominously as the girl burst into tears, Midoriya stopping his celebration over coming in ninth to go awkwardly comfort her. He was quickly pushed aside by the other 1A girls, who glared at Shota as they did so.
However, I lied about the expulsion. You all showed you deserve your spot here, and you can all stay.
Shota continued quickly. Hey, he wasn't entirely as heartless as the other staff claimed, just pragmatic. Izuku groaned as he dragged himself towards the gate, Kachan in a similar state of agony beside him. Everything in his body hurt, and it took all his willpower to take another step. They had been released swiftly after the test, and his legs had not even remotely recovered. You guys are crazy, Shinzo says, hands stuffed in his pockets as he walks beside them. Can't believe I'm ending up friends with a pair of energetic people like this. Hey, you know you love us already, Izuku cheers, picking himself up straighter and forcing a smile and a little dance. Someone has to drag you out of your weird edgy funk. Beside him, Kachan just grunts tiredly, palms sparking weakly as he tosses a glare of solidarity at Shinzo for the mutual suffering they must undergo for their choice of company. You grow on me, Shinzo says, raising an eyebrow at Izuku's outburst of glee at the remark. Kind of like a tumor, actually, now that I think of it. This was chapter 4, and now we'll swiftly continue until chapter 5, which is titled A New Battle, Part 1. Summary. School starts in earnest, and the first real challenge is group chats. The second real challenge is a battle trial. Hitoshi rolled over in bed that evening, breaking his usual habit of staring at the ceiling moodily for hours when his phone pinged him. Confused, he picked it up and checked the notifications. As far as he knew, nobody had his number, so why was he in a group chat? Group chat between Midoriya Izuku, Bakugo Katsuki, Shinzo Hitoshi. Midoriya Izuku. Hi, don't ask how I got your number. Bakugo Katsuki. Seriously, don't ask him. Welcome to hell, Ibex. Midoriya Izuku changed Shinzo Hitoshi's name to Ibex. Midoriya Izuku changed Bakugo Katsuki's name to Blastoid. Blastoid changed Midoriya Izuku's name to Deku. What the fuck? Deku. Kachan, that's mean. Blastoid. You earned it, asshole. Whatever it was, I believe Bakugo. Deku. Hey, not you too. We are united in suffering. A house divided against itself. Blah blah blah. Why are you messaging me at 3 a.m.? Deku. Because I'm excited. First day of classes tomorrow. Blastoid. Fuck, I'm going to bed. Muting this chat. Mood. See you guys tomorrow. Deku. Don't leave me. Hitoshi rolled back over in bed with a smile, closing his phone and placing it back on the dresser. Having friends was nice, especially once they didn't seem to care about his quirk for some reason. If only he could hope for the same reaction from the class once he had to start using it in heroics lessons. He sighed, squeezing his eyes shut in hopes it would keep out the depressing reality. May as well try to get an hour or two of sleep before he must get up at 6 a.m. Hitoshi walked into class the next morning, tired and disheveled, taking his seat in front of Midoriya with a groan. The ever-cheerful brunette immediately pokes him on the shoulder. Hey Shinzo, what's up? Midoriya says. Why the tired face? You look like you were up at 3 a.m. or something. Izuku, he was up at 3 in the damn morning. Bakugo cuts in tiredly. Oh, why would he do that? You woke him up texting when you woke me up at 3 in the morning with a damn group chat? The blonde explodes, drawing a chuckle from Hitoshi as Izuku facepalms and sits fully in his seat. Moments later, Eraserhead is rising from behind his desk, calling for silence, and the day proceeds normally from there. It weirds Hitoshi out sometimes just how normal the classes in UA are. They have had math, English, and history already, and it seems no different from other schools. Aside from Midoriya fanboying over the teachers constantly. Maybe heroics would be different. I am here, coming through the doorway like a normal person, All Might pronounced as he slid into the classroom. Oh my god, it's All Might! Screamed Izuku, as he, along with the rest of class, collectively lost their minds over the great hero. Several minutes and 20 hero suits later, the kids were filing down into the locker rooms, chattering merrily in excitement. Izuku put his case down and snapped it open. Inside was his costume, and, he thought to himself reverently, his future. Izuku's costume consisted of a black jumpsuit, lightly sprinkled with glitter to give it a starry effect whenever he moved. The jumpsuit was made of a thin and durable material that wouldn't stop a knife or anything, but could help lessen impacts and prevent scrapes. Over the jumpsuit went a black utility belt with dark green pouches, and a pair of elbow-length black gloves, streaked with green lines. Completing the ensemble was a pair of garish red boots, and a minimalist black mask with a light filter in it. The belt was filled with medical supplies, basic gimmicks like marbles and darts, and a small 4-inch utility knife clipped to the side of it. Izuku did a little twirl and walked out of the room with Kachan, whose large gauntlets made Izuku chuckle to himself at how silly they looked. Who gave you a knife? Shinzo exclaimed in alarm, quickly backing away. His own costume was very similar to Izuku's, a dark purple jumpsuit with a black vest of some durable-looking material and a pair of black combat pants over it. At his neck hung a complicated-looking mask, and his own utility belt lacked a knife, but gained what appeared to be several black yo-yos. Nezusu proved it, Izuku said cheerfully, flicking it open and waving it around. I asked permission when we were discussing my transfer into some coding classes with the support department. Why is Nezu personally transferring you into coding classes? Oh, that's because he caught me trying to hack into the UA system to get people's quirk info, Izuku announced, seeing absolutely nothing wrong with the information. Shinzo groaned, and behind him, a certain brunette recoiled in horror. A few minutes later, All Might came in and announced the exercise for the day. Battle trial. Izuku vibrated with excitement as the details were ironed out and bounded excitedly over to Uraraka when the partnership is announced. Hey Uraraka, Izuku says. I can't wait to work with you, it's going to be so... Why are you crying? You're the green boy from the exam, Uraraka said, looking up at him in terror, PTSD flashing across her eyes. You're crazy! Oh my god, please don't hurt me! Don't worry, Izuku says, cheerfully oblivious. I don't bite. Do you stab? I don't bite. Izuku motions to the floor plan he brought with him. We should make a plan. Ojiro and Mina will be tough opponents. Okay, Uraraka says shakily. What did you have in mind? What if you floated me to the top level of the building and then came in through the bottom? We could divide and conquer, Izuku says, before grinning wickedly. Besides, they will most likely leave Ojiro up top with a bomb, since Mina is too excitable to stay put, and I have a score to settle with Tailboy. Uraraka nods, and the plan is set. 2 minutes later, Izuku is floating up the side of a modest building from just the force of a jump, peering through windows until he finds the floor he wants. He motions to Uraraka to let him go, then crashes through the window with a dive. Ojiro jumps in surprise, turning around from where he was patrolling the entrance points of the 4th floor in case of this exact scenario. Hello, my name is Inigo Midoriya. You killed my win streak. Prepare to die, Izuku happily exclaims, jumping towards Ojiro in a flying front kick. I thought you were a counter-offensive fighter, Ojiro exclaims, blocking the kick and pivoting smoothly into a fighting stance. Why so aggressive? I wasn't a counter-offensive fighter, Izuku protests, jabbing twice before throwing a knife hand towards Ojiro's unprotected neck. I was just shy. Ojiro grunts as he uses his tail to dodge away from the knife hand, taking it to his shoulder instead. He pivots on his tail and throws a vicious sidekick at Midoriya's ribs, which is deflected to the side and answered with a flurry of punches. The two martial artists weave in and out of each other's guards, sparring at a frantic pace as Izuku pushes for the victory he was denied at the tournament. Izuku springs back suddenly, whipping out his knife and scoring a line in the drywall. He flicks the mess at his confused opponent's eyes and jumps up, using the wall as a stepping stone for a greater momentum. 2 front kicks lash out into Ojiro's fumbling guard.
the second catching him in the jaw as Izuku's body lands squarely on his shoulders. The pair tumble to the ground with a thud, Izuku pummeling Ojiro with punches before quickly wrapping the tape around his wrists when he crosses them for a block. "You feel dirty outside of a tournament," Ojiro complains good-naturedly as he pulls himself to a seated position gingerly. "Considered a sign of respect," Izuku says as he bounds off to help out Uraraka at the location she had just radioed him from. "If you were a worse fighter, I wouldn't have needed the knife." Ochako picked her way through the building slowly, still a little shaken up from being near Midoriya. The greenette didn't act anything like the feral blur that had saved her during the exam, before jumping off a building and onto a robot, but his presence still set her on edge. Memories of the early carnage were burned into her. A sizzling noise echoed from the hallway in front of her, and she tensed. Mina stepped around the corner, hands dribbling acid ominously as she advanced. "Hey, Uraraka," she says cheerfully. "No hard feelings for this, okay?" "For what?" A wave of acid flowed out of Mina's hands as she jumped forwards, splattering against the walls and floor. Ochako flung herself back desperately, globs of it sizzling on her bodysuit. Mina continues to advance, palms coated with acid. Ochako settles into a basic boxing position, wishing she had learned to fight better before coming to school. Some martial arts training like Midoriya had would be great right now. "If either of us score a touch, this will get messy fast," Mina says, leaping forwards and throwing a sloppy palm strike. "I won't give up!" Ochako cries out, feeling a little silly but determined to do her best. The palm strike stings as it impacts her forearm, and she drives her fist into Mina's stomach, tapping her with her fingers to activate a quirk. "Midoriya, I'm on the third floor. Mina is here with me." Mina scowls, floating in the air awkwardly. She kicks off her shoes and shoots acid out of her feet, propelling herself towards Ochako swiftly. "You've mobilized me," Mina cackles gleefully. "I have the high ground." Ochako ducks under Mina and hisses again when acid splatters against her. She swings widely, driving Mina towards the stairs without managing to hit her. The pink girl retaliates by cupping her hands and spraying out a thin line of acid at Ochako, who swiftly dodges. She is rapidly running out of space, and Ochako starts to sweat as the acid swings towards her again. "I've got you now," Mina says. "Surrender to me." Ah! The pink cat's taunt cuts off as a green shape drops onto her shoulders, having leapt from the top of the stairs and dove onto her. Ochako barely has the presence of mind to release her quirk and sends him crashing to the ground as the boy lays into Mina with a series of vicious punches. By the time Midoriya hits the ground beside her, Mina is barely conscious and doesn't fight back as Ochako wraps her in the capture tape. "The hero team win!" Ahmed's voice rings out on the comms as Ochako reflects on how little this is done to alleviate the fear of Midoriya Izuku. So those two chapters were interesting. The first day of school, the quirk apprehension test, and then the first bit of the battle trials. It will be fun to read the next one. But anyways, guys, I hope you all enjoyed chapter 4 and 5 of Brighter Light, Darker Shadow, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!